In the world's perception, Chinese entering the US illegally seems like a distant past. But data from Panama's immigration department shows that in the first 2 months of 2023, more than 2,000 Chinese have already reached the southern border of the US. They are crossing into the US by way of the dangerous Darien Canyon jungle. Both local authorities and private agencies that help migrants say that they have never seen so many Chinese venture north. This number is likely to increase in the future. Crossing the Panama rainforest, they make their way north to the US-Mexico border and then smuggle themselves into the US. This section is known as one of the most dangerous smuggling routes in the world. In addition to the brutal natural elements, the rainforest is rife with the risk of being attacked and robbed of money by armed gangs. But none of this seems to deter the Chinese from fleeing their homeland. The Chinese online community calls this move walking the line to the US. On WeChat, searches for the term walking the line to the US have been increasing since 2021. According to WeChat's public data, the most recent spike in search for this term was on February 1st, 2023, when WeChat users searched and shared the term 550,000 times. Mr. Sun, a young man from rural Jiangxi, is one of those who took the route and succeeded. After arriving in the US, he told overseas Chinese media about his experience of walking the line and recorded the process on his Twitter account. He has a wife and 3 children. Sun made comments online against Putin and in support of Ukraine, for which he was taken away by the police and imprisoned for a few days. It was one of the reasons that made him start his escape plan. In 2019, while working in Southeast Asia, he used Facebook. Through this, he learned the truth about June 4, 1989, the Tiananmen Square massacre. He came to realize that what one of his elders had told him about the communist bloodbath at Tiananmen Square was true. It was then he came to see the truth about the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. Since 2021, Sun frequently bypassed the firewall to access YouTube, where he watched the channels of renowned Chinese commentators Jiang Feng and Wen Zhao. Sun's plan was to take a trip out of Macau, make his first stop in Thailand, then go to Istanbul in Turkey, and take a flight from there to Ecuador. Once landing on the soil of South America, he could make his way north from there to the US. After he made the plan, Sun quit his job and checked out of his rental home. On August 10, 2022, he led his family out of Zhuhai. He was ready to tell customs that the family was traveling to Macau. Unexpectedly, he encountered a problem when clearing customs. People were asked to have their fingerprints scanned. If there were no problem, the customs gate would open automatically. But after Sun scanned his fingerprints, the gate didn't move at all. A border police officer immediately approached him and yelled, "Show me your passport." Sun was shocked and thought, this is the end. The policeman led him to a small dark room where he saw several other Chinese. Fortunately, Sun had deleted his escape plan and anti-communist comments from his cell phone prior, and he had kept the contact information of his former Cambodian employer. The police went through his cell phone, checked his WeChat circle of friends, and after questioning him for half an hour, they eventually let him leave the country. Sun registered a Twitter account on September 9, 2022, with the name All the Way North. In early October, the Sun family left Quito and headed to Colombia, where they officially began what people call their journey of walking the line to the US. On the beach in the front of the endless sea, filled with homesickness, Sun tweeted, "My relatives on the other side of the sea, I miss you guys, but I can't go back. I can only move forward, always, because there are still many miles ahead." The road ahead was the infamous Panama rainforest, which is a gateway to smuggle people from South America to the US. Among them were people from Haiti, Colombia, Venezuela, and other countries. Sun and his family were the only Chinese family. People said to him, "You are Chinese, you all have money, you should take a plane to Mexico. How come you are taking the smuggle route that poor people like us use?" The Sun family followed a large group of hundreds of people into the rainforest. The feeling along the way was wet. There was rain in the sky, a river flowing under the feet, and sweat on the body. Looking up in the forest, one couldn't see the sky, and people were surrounded by big trees that blocked out the sun. There were seemingly endless hills, and people kept climbing them all the way. While crossing a turbulent river, Sun's wife let go of her grip on the rope due to fatigue. Fortunately, everyone caught her in time and saved her life. Sun said that out of his longing for freedom, he had the determination to block any back door before he left. So no matter what he encountered along the way, he never regretted it. He tweeted on October 30th, 2022, "Where everyone wants to go isn't necessarily heaven, but where everyone risking their lives to escape must be hell." From Panama, the Sun family traveled through Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, and finally came to Mexicali, Mexico. They stayed at a refugee camp where the stowaways were fingerprinted and registered with their names, nationalities, and other information. In fact, from here on out, the U.S. already knows who is coming in illegally, and in the near future, they will have to meet these stowaways at the border. Late at night on November 3rd, 2022, the snakehead gave the order, "Cross the wall tonight." The group of 20 or so of them set off on their way with the snakehead's small car in front and the stowaways sitting in the big vehicle behind. They came to a large wall which was 6 meters high. Snakehead first set up ladders on both sides of the wall and first helped several members of Sun's family to climb over. Suddenly, from a short distance, shot over a bright light. The light shone directly on their family. Then came a police car, lights flashing, and a loudspeaker shouted over, telling them, "Don't move." Sun and his family didn't dare to move, and they didn't know whether it was the Mexican police or the American police. The police called them over and one of them asked him, "China?" He said yes. The police officer shook his head and then laughed. At that moment, Sun saw the American flag and emblem on the police car. He felt a rush of excitement and a sense of assurance at the same time. He shouted, "I'm finally here." He cried and shed tears. It was the early morning of November 4th, 2022. It would be exactly 2 days short of 3 months from the time he had led his family out of China. Currently, Sun's family has landed in Los Angeles. He tweeted, "Brothers, it isn't important if we were born humble, even low as a salted fish. By adding some oil, I believe we at least don't have to get stuck in the pot." It's not just lower-income Chinese who are willing to take the risk. Chen Hongyuan was born in the 1990s in Kunming, Yunnan province. He studied in the U.S. from 2011 to 2016 and obtained a Bachelor of Science degree from the State University of New York. After graduation, he planned to join the U.S. Army, but an accident disrupted his plan, and he had to return to China. But after returning to China, he was unable to adapt to the CCP's high-handed control and various social chaos. I'm going to explain why I'm scared, and there are 2 reasons. The first is that the country is becoming Nazified and North Koreanized. If I continue to stay here, I will be persecuted by the CCP sooner or later, and I know that day will come soon. It won't be too far away. Chen said that he started to think independently when he was a teenager, so his understanding of the CCP was different from that of his peers. When I was in junior high, first, there was relatively free speech in those days. Our teacher told us about the matter of harvesting human organs from live people. At that time, I didn't believe it at all. At that time, I couldn't imagine that there was such an evil government in this world, that it would carry out such appalling things at the government level. However, I did some research then. I checked online, but it wasn't the internet. At that time, I didn't know anything about the firewall and how to bypass it. I used the CCP's own search engine, Baidu. I checked the number of organ donations in China over the years, as well as the number of completed organ transplants. I found that the numbers didn't match at all. I was curious how the CCP achieved such a large-scale organ transplant operation. Although I have no direct evidence to prove that it has carried out this kind of live organ harvesting and surgery, judging from these side pieces of evidence, I am willing to believe that the CCP has carried out the evil practice of organ harvesting. Today, there is growing evidence that the CCP is engaged in organ harvesting on a large scale. For many hospitals in China, the organ transplant business is very proficient. Take a look at this video from February 20th, 2023. At 15:18, a passenger plane with transported organs took off from Guangxi province in southwest China, and at 15:35, a helicopter relayed a civilian flight with organs and medical personnel, arriving at the hospital in Shanghai at 15:46. It's a hospital specialized in pulmonary medicine. The medical staff raced to deliver the organs to the operating table. The process was fast and smooth. First of all, in this land of China, if you don't do evil with the CCP, even if you keep silent, you are already very noble. After all, in this land of China, if you want to make a sound, the price may be very high. My own personality means that when I see the CCP's perverse actions on this land, it is impossible for me to remain silent, because if I don't speak out about these things, I feel that I am committing a crime. Although I have said these things and it may not have any real effect, I still believe it's a crime if I don't say anything and stay silent. If I continue to talk like this, I will be discovered by the CCP sooner or later. If others just report me, then I will get arrested directly. Some people said, why don't you hold it back and don't say anything in public? I think it's too late because I have published countless anti-communist things since high school, both online and offline. Chen mentioned that when he was a teacher in public school in China, he had a colleague who was a math teacher and had just returned from studying in Canada and aspired to stay in Canada. This colleague asked his students to join the Communist Youth League and told them that Chinese passports were the best in the world. This was a statement in line with the official Chinese propaganda, including that of the entertainment industry. In the influential Chinese film Werewolf, the audience is given a strong impression that having a Chinese passport is the proudest thing in the world. To get the crowd going, Chinese media issued a general release stating that China had signed mutual visa waiver agreements with 150 countries, including Malaysia. The press release reads, "It can be said that the Chinese passport is becoming more and more valuable, and there are more and more travel destinations that you can get to at a moment's notice." Is this really the case? This cameraman shared his experience of going from being excited to being disappointed.
马上进入马来西亚。
I am about to enter Malaysia, and now I am in a small border town in Thailand, Sadao Town. The town is small, but the border trade is well developed. All the container trucks are heading to Malaysia. There is a currency exchange counter here, so I'm going to convert the unused Thai baht into Malaysian currency. I still have 3,000 baht, 600 yuan. This is the Malaysian currency. The exchange rate isn't bad. I looked up the official exchange rate today and it's 1 to 7.7 as well, about the same. That side is the freight lane. It's for big trucks leaving the border. Tourists go through this channel. I take out my passport and I'm heading to the lobby to clear customs. There is a Chinese passport courtesy line, which is nice. I'm about to enter Malaysia. I'm going to get my visa on arrival. Friends, the visa on arrival failed. I wasn't allowed to enter. I wasn't given a visa. I was fooled again. I read in the online guide that I could get a visa on arrival, but they wouldn't give me one. Now I can't go back to Thailand because I've already left the country, and the Thai visa is now invalid, alas. I am lucky there is a long bench here. If I can spend the night here, I will. I'm afraid that they are going to clear customs at night and won't let me stay here. Fortunately, Chen isn't misled at all by the Chinese government's official information. On the contrary, he finds it hard to accept his colleagues' active efforts to indoctrinate people around with the CCP's brainwashing ideology. Once, I really couldn't stand it anymore. I posted a sarcastic meme about Xi Jinping COVID-0 policy in the WeChat circle of friends with a picture of the Pooh Bear, a cartoon. And then my colleague came to my face and questioned me, "How could you do this?" And then blah blah blah, "You have too much nerve." That's it. I said, "It's none of your business, ah. You want to kneel yourself, but I don't want to kneel, alright?" A lad like Cheng Hong Yuan found himself unable to remain in China under the CCP regime. So, 6 years after returning to China, he embarked on a daring and adventurous plan to return to the US even if it meant stowing away. In August 2022, Chen began his adventurous plan in the hopes that he could once again set foot on American soil. Chen had a short-term student visa to France, so he got out of Chinese customs smoothly. After arriving in France, he spent a day inside the airport and flew to Mexico the next day. After the French visa was activated, he was able to enter Mexico without a visa. The Mexican customs went smoothly. In less than 15 seconds, Chen was granted a 180-day stay. Chen chose Playas de Tijuana to swim across and over the U.S.-Mexico border. What struck him most there was that he actually saw 10 Chinese attempting the same thing. It was a lot of Chinese.
然后我也问过他们，就说为什么要偷渡。
I asked them why they wanted to sneak across the border. Some of them are afraid of the Communist Party, discontented with the CCP, and then afraid of the CCP's persecution. There are also some people who have no political aspirations but simply want to go to the US for work because China's economy is so bad that they can't do business anymore and they can't support their families. At that time, I thought, the CCP has been promoting itself as a great country, so powerful, then why do so many people want to flee? Hasn't China achieved total elimination of poverty? Why are there still so many people fleeing out of China?
你不是已经实现了全面脱贫吗？那为什么还有那么多人往外跑？
Chen Hongyuan surrendered to the U.S. border police. Most people who come out of detention centers have deportation orders, but Chen doesn't. He can still apply for active asylum. Chen plans to wait until he is granted asylum and then apply to join the U.S. military. Little pinks in China will label people like Chen Hongyuan as traitors. How will Chen respond to these accusations?
卖国贼这个我就觉得
I find it strange to be called a traitor or a sellout. If you want to sell something, you have to first own it, or at least own part of it. If you can call someone a traitor or sellout, you are thinking too highly of them. What is there in this country that you own? You don't even own a piece of land. How can you be accused of being a sellout or traitor?
你都没有拥有，你怎么卖它？
In reality, the criticisms and curses of little pinks won't do anything to stop those who want to flee China. Look, this is the long line of people currently in front of the U.S. consulate in China. Are you crazy? From January 8th to March 7th, the number of people leaving China reached 39.72 million. The highest day was as high as 1 million people. It's said that foreign countries are dangerous and difficult, so guess what they actually went out for? On March 29th, U.S. media outlet Axios reported on the movement of Chinese people across the southern U.S. border. A Chinese father, Sam, who now lives in Albany, the capital of New York State, awaiting immigration court, told Axios that he took his 16-year-old son north from the south all the way to the U.S.-Mexico border in February. Before that, they crossed 11 countries, including Thailand, Turkey, Ecuador, Panama, and Guatemala. Sam participated in a social movement on the streets of Guangzhou against the extreme COVID-0 policy. His wife and young son remain in China. Sam and his son began their journey north to the U.S. using Ecuador's visa-free tour. They were arrested and detained by the Border Patrol for 5 days as they traveled through 7 Latin American countries. Sam told Axios, "It was like an animal stampede before an earthquake." News Nation reporter Jorge Venture tweeted a video on March 20th saying that he had been covering border news for the past several years and had never seen such a large number of Chinese illegally crossing into the U.S. He said arrests of Chinese nationals by U.S. border authorities have spiked by more than 900% compared to last year. According to the U.S. Border Immigration Agency, 4,300 Chinese have crossed the southern U.S. border so far in the fiscal year 2023 from October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2023. In February alone, the U.S. Border Patrol apprehended 1,345 Chinese immigrants. In contrast, fewer than 2,000 Chinese were arrested while crossing the border in the entire fiscal year 2022. Based on the most recent U.S. government data, a relatively high percentage of Chinese nationals are granted asylum in the U.S., about 58%. By comparison, the average rate of passage for asylum seekers in the northern triangle of Central American countries, including Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, is 10%. The Biden administration announced a new policy in February to impose strict limits on who is eligible for asylum status after entering the U.S. illegally. The move could disqualify most immigrants from seeking asylum at the southern border after May 11th. That's because under U.S. immigration law, immigrants who pass through another country on their way to the U.S. but fail to apply for protection in that country will not be eligible to seek asylum in the U.S.